My name is Ezra Morgan. I am 67 years old, and until last month, I thought I had experienced all the pain life could throw at a man. I was wrong. When my beautiful, brilliant daughter Sophia passed away and left me $29 million, I never imagined her ex would crawl out of the woodwork after 10 years of silence. But when he showed up at her funeral with demands and threats, he had no idea who he was dealing with. Some battles are worth fighting no matter the cost. Before I tell you my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever had to stand up for your family's honor, hit that like button and subscribe to show your support. I grew up in the blue-collar neighborhoods of rural Pennsylvania with calloused hands and a strong back. My father taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and providing for your family. These principles guided me when I started my small construction company at 25. Nothing came easy, but I built that business brick by brick, just like the houses we constructed. When I met Amanda at a friend's barbecue in 1980, it was love at first sight. Her warm brown eyes and gentle laugh captivated me immediately. We married within 6 months, and 3 years later, our daughter Sophia came into the world all pink and perfect, with a full head of dark hair, just like her mother's. Life was good. Simple but good. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom home I had built myself, and though we never had much extra money, we had enough. Amanda worked part-time as a school librarian, and I put in long hours at construction sites. Every evening we would sit around our oak dining table, the one my father had helped me build as a wedding gift, and share stories about our day. When Sophia turned 12, our world shattered. Amanda started having headaches that would not go away. The diagnosis came back aggressive brain cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 4. Those final months were a blur of hospital rooms, hushed conversations, and trying to prepare Sophia for a world without her mother. The night Amanda died, I sat on our back porch until sunrise, wondering how I would raise our daughter alone. I was a construction worker, not equipped for the delicate task of guiding a young girl through her teenage years. But I made a silent promise to Amanda that I would do everything in my power to give Sophia the life she deserved. Raising a teenage daughter as a single father was the hardest job I ever had. There were moments of complete bewilderment, like when Sophia came home crying because some girls at school made fun of her clothes, or when she needed to buy her first bra. I enlisted help from Amanda's sister Janet for those conversations, but for everything else it was just the two of us against the world. Despite our loss, Sophia thrived. She inherited her mother's intelligence and my determination. While I worked long hours to keep our life stable, Sophia poured herself into her studies. By 14, she was writing computer programs that I could not begin to understand. Her teachers called her a prodigy. I just called her my brilliant girl. High school brought new challenges. Sophia was accelerated 2 grades ahead, making her younger than her classmates. I worried she would struggle socially, but she found her tribe in the computer science club. While other kids went to parties, Sophia built websites and learned coding languages with names that sounded like alphabet soup to me: Python, Java, C++. When the acceptance letter from Stanford arrived with a full scholarship, I cried with pride. My girl, the daughter of a construction worker and a librarian, heading to one of the top universities in the country. The night before she left for California, we sat on that same back porch where I had mourned her mother. "Dad," she said, her voice soft in the darkness. "Mom would be so proud of us." I squeezed her hand. "She would be proud of you, Soph. I am just the guy who made sure you had dinner every night." She shook her head fiercely. "No, you rebuilt our world after it fell apart. You never missed a single one of my science competitions, even when you had to drive 3 hours after working a full day. You learned to braid my hair from YouTube videos. You are the reason I am who I am. Those years at Stanford flew by. Sophia would call me every Sunday night without fail, telling me about her classes and the incredible ideas buzzing around Silicon Valley. During her junior year, she developed a security software that caught the attention of several tech companies. By the time she graduated, she had already turned down 3 job offers to start her own company, SecureShift. I flew out for her graduation, bursting with pride as she walked across that stage. Amanda should have been there to see it, but I felt her presence that day, watching over our extraordinary daughter. After graduation, Sophia insisted on continuing our Sunday tradition, but now she would call me from her small apartment in San Francisco. SecureShift was growing rapidly, specializing in cybersecurity solutions for financial institutions. Despite her busy schedule, she never forgot where she came from. She flew home for every Christmas, my birthday, and the anniversary of her mother's passing. When Sophia turned 25, she invited me to visit her in California. I was shocked to find she had purchased a beautiful condo overlooking the bay. "Dad, the company is doing really well," she said, downplaying her success in that humble way she had inherited from her mother. It was during that visit that Sophia first mentioned James Taylor. They had met at a tech conference where she was a featured speaker. He was a marketing executive for a rival security firm, and according to Sophia, he was charming, intelligent, and ambitious. "You will like him, Dad," she assured me. "He reminds me a little of you. He comes from nothing and is determined to make something of himself." 3 months later, she flew him out to Pennsylvania to meet me. James was tall, well-dressed, and had the kind of smile that seemed to belong on television commercials. He shook my hand firmly and called me sir. He asked thoughtful questions about my business and laughed at my old construction worker jokes. On paper, he seemed perfect. Yet something about him made me uneasy. Perhaps it was the way his eyes lingered too long on Sophia's new luxury car, or how he subtly guided conversations toward money and connections. When Sophia stepped away to answer a work call, James leaned toward me. "Your daughter is going places, sir," he said. "Her company is positioned to be the next big acquisition target. Google or Microsoft could come calling any day now." It struck me as odd that he spoke of my daughter's accomplishments in terms of monetary value rather than the brilliance and hard work behind them. But I kept my concerns to myself. Sophia was happy, and that was what mattered. 6 months after I met James, Sophia called me on a Tuesday night instead of our usual Sunday. Her voice was bubbling with excitement. James had proposed during a helicopter tour over San Francisco Bay with a diamond ring that must have cost more than my house. "Are you happy, Soph?" I asked her. "So happy, Dad. I never thought I could feel this way about someone." The wedding plans quickly spiraled into something I barely recognized. James pushed for a 300-person gala at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. When I saw the budget, I nearly had a heart attack. I offered to contribute my life savings, but Sophia gently refused. "The company just closed a major funding round, Dad. I can afford this." And James says this wedding is as much about networking as celebration. Half the guest list is potential investors and clients. The wedding was beautiful, but felt more like a corporate event than a family celebration. James's parents, both successful attorneys from Boston, seemed to look down their noses at my simple suit and Midwestern manners. During the reception, I overheard James's father comment that his son had landed quite the golden goose. The words made my stomach turn. After the honeymoon, a 3-week tour of Europe's most expensive destinations, subtle changes began in my Sunday calls with Sophia. She seemed more distant, always in a rush. James would often interrupt our conversations with questions about dinner reservations or social engagements. 6 months into the marriage, Sophia and James purchased a $5 million mansion in Atherton. When she gave me a video tour, I barely recognized my daughter in this palace of marble and glass. Gone was the practical girl who used to help me fix the leaky bathroom sink. In her place was someone who apologized for the modest guest house that was 3 times the size of my entire home. During my next visit, I noticed more troubling signs. James would check Sophia's phone when it chimed with notifications. He would correct her stories at dinner parties. Small things, but they reminded me of a contractor I once fired for slowly warping support beams to force customers into expensive repairs later. One night while James was away on a business trip, Sophia and I sat on her expansive terrace overlooking carefully manicured gardens. "Are you truly happy, Sophia?" I asked gently. She hesitated just a moment too long. "Of course, Dad. I have everything I could want." "Everything is not the same as what you need," I said, echoing something her mother used to say. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. "James thinks I work too much. He wants me to consider selling the company. He says we have enough money now and that I should focus on starting a family and managing our social obligations." My heart sank. "And what do you want?" "I love my work, Dad. Secure Shift is not just a company to me. We are protecting people's financial security, their personal information. It matters." I took her hand. "Then you need to tell him that. Your mother never gave up the library job she loved, even when I could support us. She said it fed her soul." Sophia smiled through her tears. "I remember. She used to say that people who love you want you to be more of yourself, not less." The conversation seemed to strengthen her resolve. Over the next few months, Secure Shift expanded rapidly. Sophia hired more engineers and opened a second office in Austin. James grew increasingly resentful of her success and the time she dedicated to her company. Things came to a head at Thanksgiving dinner at their home. James had been drinking heavily throughout the meal and began making pointed comments about workaholics and women who prioritize ambition over family. When Sophia excused herself to take an emergency call from her head of security, James slammed his glass down. "See what I mean? She cannot even be present for a holiday dinner." I kept my voice level. "My daughter built something remarkable through her own brilliance and hard work. That deserves respect, not resentment." James's face darkened. "You do not understand the arrangement we had, Ezra. She promised things would change after the marriage." "What things exactly?" "That she would scale back, take a normal role as my wife, not be constantly consumed by that damn company." He leaned forward. "Do you know what it is like to attend events where everyone wants to talk to your wife about her latest innovation, while you stand there holding her drink?" In that moment, I saw James clearly for what he was, a man who had married my daughter for what he thought she could give him, not for who she was. I stood up from the table. "My late wife was the librarian at our local elementary school," I said quietly. "Every time we went anywhere in town, children would run up to her parents, would thank her for helping their kids love reading. I never once felt anything but tremendous pride standing beside her. That is what love looks like, James." The situation deteriorated from there. Sophia began staying at the office later to avoid confrontations at home. James started taking more business trips that Sophia later discovered were actually weekend getaways with friends from his country club. They began attending marriage counseling, but James would use the sessions to try to convince the therapist that Sophia's work commitment was the sole problem in their marriage. Despite the personal turmoil, Secure Shift continued to thrive. The company developed a revolutionary encryption protocol that made them the gold standard in financial security. Major banks began signing exclusive contracts. The company valuation soared past 100 million. James's behavior grew more controlling. He hired decorators to completely remodel their home without consulting Sophia. He purchased sports cars and vacation properties, leveraging Sophia's wealth while criticizing the source of it. He began monitoring her emails and questioning her male colleagues' intentions. 3 years into their increasingly troubled marriage, Sophia called me on a Tuesday night again. This time, her voice was flat, emotionless. "Dad, the doctor found something during my annual exam." The words sent ice through my veins. Just like with her mother, the diagnosis came swiftly and mercilessly: stage 4 ovarian cancer. It had already metastasized. Treatment options were limited. The 5-year survival rate was under 20%. I was on a plane to San Francisco the next morning. When I arrived at their mansion, Sophia was alone, curled up on a vast sectional sofa that made her look even smaller and more vulnerable. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Where is James?" I asked. Her voice cracked as she answered. "He left last night. Said he needed time to process. He has not come back." I held my daughter as she sobbed, this brilliant, accomplished woman reduced to the scared child she had been when we lost her mother. I unpacked my suitcase in the guest room, canceled my return flight, and prepared to stay as long as necessary. James did not return that night, or the next. When he finally showed up 3 days later, he seemed annoyed to find me there. He pulled me aside in the kitchen while Sophia rested. "Look, Ezra, I know you want to help, but we need space to handle this as a couple." I stared at him incredulously. "Space, as you left your wife alone after a cancer diagnosis. I found her here crying by herself." He had the audacity to look offended. "You do not understand what this means for our lives, our plans. This is not what I signed up for." "Actually, it is exactly what you signed up for," I replied. "In sickness and in health, those vows mean something." James ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Be realistic. We are talking about years of treatments, hospitals, caregiving. I cannot put my life on hold indefinitely." "That is exactly what you do for someone you love," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You put everything else aside and you stand by them." The next morning, while Sophia was in the shower, James packed 2 suitcases. He left a note on the kitchen counter. "I need time. This is not what I expected from our marriage. I will call when I figure things out." When Sophia found the note, she did not cry. She just nodded slowly, as if confirming something she had long suspected. "At least now I know," she said. I moved in permanently. We converted one of the many spare bedrooms into a comfortable space for me, though most nights I slept in the chair beside Sophia's bed, ready to help if she woke up nauseated or in pain from the treatments. James called once 2 weeks after he left. He asked about the prognosis in a detached voice, then inquired if Sophia was still handling her business affairs, despite her illness. I hung up on him. He never called again. The next 2 years were a brutal cycle of treatments, hospital stays, brief periods of hope, and crushing setbacks. Through it all, Sophia maintained an almost supernatural strength. On good days, she would work remotely, joining video conferences from her bedroom. Her team at Secure Shift was fiercely loyal, restructuring the company to accommodate her limited capacity while keeping her vision intact. During one particularly difficult hospital stay, I found Sophia typing furiously on her laptop, despite having just received a chemotherapy treatment. "Soph, you need to rest," I urged. She shook her head. "I cannot rest, Dad. We are on the verge of something big." a security protocol that could protect millions of people from identity theft. It matters more than ever now. Why more now? I asked. She looked up at me, her once thick, dark hair now replaced by a colorful scarf. Because I might not have much time left. I need to make sure what I leave behind has meaning. Despite the aggressive treatment plan, the cancer continued to spread. During a quiet moment in her sunlit bedroom after reviewing yet another disappointing scan result, Sophia made a decision. "I want to stop the treatments, Dad," she said. "They are not working, and they are taking away what quality time I have left." My heart rebelled against the words, but I knew she was right. The chemotherapy was ravaging her body without slowing the cancer's progression. Her doctors reluctantly agreed that moving to palliative care was reasonable at this stage. Freed from the grueling treatment schedule, Sophia experienced a brief rally. She used this time purposefully. She called in her company's legal team and updated all her financial affairs and her will. She wrote letters to her key employees thanking them and providing guidance for the company's future. She even recorded video messages to be played at specific company milestones after she was gone. During this period, SecureShift completed the security protocol Sophia had been working on throughout her illness. Major financial institutions around the world began implementing it, generating substantial revenue for the company. Sophia's innovation would go on to protect countless people from financial fraud. We had precious good moments amid the decline. On sunny days, I would wheel her out to the garden, where we would have lunch and reminisce about her childhood. We watched old movies that she and Amanda had loved. Her closest friends from the company would visit, careful to keep their time brief so as not to tire her, but filling the house with warmth and laughter while they were there. As her strength waned, our conversations turned philosophical. Sophia spoke often about her mother wondering if Amanda would be waiting for her. She expressed regret at not having children, but took comfort in knowing her work would protect families around the world. "I have been thinking about James," she said one evening, as the sunset painted her room in gold. "I wasted so many years trying to be what he wanted, instead of being true to myself." "We all make mistakes in love," I said gently. She shook her head. "It was not a mistake I regret. Even this illness, as terrible as it has been, showed me what truly matters. It showed me who truly loves me." She squeezed my hand. "You never left my side, Dad. Not for a single day." "I never would," I replied simply. In her final week, Sophia had moments of startling clarity amid increasing periods of sleep. During one such moment, she beckoned me closer to her bed. "Dad, I have left everything to you," she whispered. "The company, the investments, all of it. There is a letter explaining why in the safe. The combination is my birthday." I tried to protest, but she continued. "I want you to use it to live really live. Travel to all those places you sacrificed visiting to raise me. Support causes that would make Mom proud. Find joy again." Her eyes, so like her mother's, held mine. "Promise me." "I promise," I said, my voice breaking. Sophia passed away peacefully 3 days later, with her head resting on my shoulder as I told her stories about her mother. She was 35 years old, the same age Amanda had been when cancer took her from us. The memorial service was held at a small chapel near our old home in Pennsylvania at Sophia's request. Hundreds attended, a testament to the lives she had touched. Colleagues flew in from around the world, many sharing stories of Sophia's brilliance, kindness, and integrity. I delivered a eulogy that celebrated her remarkable life rather than dwelling on its brevity. I spoke about the little girl who took apart our computer to see how it worked, The teenager who stayed up all night coding the woman who built a company based on protecting others. I did not cry until the very end when I said, Sophia lived with purpose, loved deeply, and left the world better than she found it. There is no greater legacy. As people filed past to offer condolences, I noticed a tall figure entering at the back of the chapel. James, looking expensively groomed in a tailored black suit, slipped into a rear pew. He had not been seen or heard from in nearly a decade. My hands clenched involuntarily at the sight of him. After the service, as guests gathered for the reception, James approached me with practiced solemnity. "My condolences, Ezra," he said, his voice smooth as ever. "Sophia was a remarkable woman." "You did not think her remarkable enough to stand by during her illness?" I replied coldly. A flash of annoyance crossed his face before he composed it back into an appropriate mask of grief. "I handled things poorly back then. I regret that now. The news was a shock, and I reacted badly." 10 years is a long time to process a shock, James. Why are you here now? He shifted uncomfortably. "To pay my respects, of course, and to discuss some financial matters that need resolving. I understand Sophia's company became quite valuable." The audacity struck me speechless for a moment. Before I could respond, Sophia's attorney, Richard Blackwell, approached us. "Mr. Morgan, we should discuss the estate details tomorrow at my office as planned," he said, eyeing James with professional detachment. James extended his hand to the lawyer. "James Taylor, Sophia's husband. I should be included in those discussions." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Ex-husband, I presume?" "Actually, no," James said with a slight smile. "We never finalized a divorce. Legally, I was still her husband at the time of her death." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I had assumed they had divorced years ago. Sophia had never mentioned otherwise. The implications were staggering and terrifying. Richard's expression remained neutral. "I see. We can discuss this further tomorrow. My office, 10 a.m. After James walked away, Richard leaned close to me. "Do not worry yet, Ezra. Let me review the details." Sophia was very thorough in her estate planning. The next morning, I met with Richard in his downtown office. He explained the extent of Sophia's estate, her controlling interest in SecureShift, now valued at over $100 million. Her investment portfolio, properties in California, New York, and London, and liquid assets totaling just over $29 million. "Sophia left everything to you, Ezra," Richard confirmed. "Her will is very clear and was updated just 3 months before her death. She also left this for you." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Sophia's elegant handwriting. The letter inside brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Dad, if you are reading this, I have gone to be with Mom. Please do not grieve too long. You gave me a lifetime of love in the years we had together. I am leaving everything to you because you are the one who supported me unconditionally. You believed in me when I built my first computer program. You encouraged me to start SecureShift when others thought it was too risky. You held my hand through every treatment and never once made me feel like a burden." I know James may contest this will. He never signed our divorce papers, though I sent them multiple times. I suspect he was planning for this very scenario. But Richard has prepared everything carefully, and I have documented James's abandonment thoroughly. Please use what I am leaving you to find joy again. You put your life on hold twice, first to raise me after Mom died, then to care for me through my illness. Now it is your turn to live. All my love forever, Sophia." Richard explained that while James's status as her legal husband could potentially complicate things, Sophia had built a strong case for his abandonment. She had kept all communication, documented his absence, and even had sworn statements from her care team about his complete lack of involvement during her illness. Still, Richard cautioned, he could contest the will and create a lengthy legal battle. Would you be open to a settlement if it meant avoiding that stress? I thought of Sophia's courage throughout her illness, of her determination to leave behind something meaningful. No, I said firmly. I will not give that man a penny of what Sophia built. She would not want that. I had barely returned home from the meeting when the doorbell rang. James stood on my porch, accompanied by a sharp-looking woman carrying a briefcase. "We need to talk, Ezra," he said, not waiting for an invitation before stepping inside. "This is my attorney, Diane Winters." I let them in, my construction workers' calloused hands clenching and unclenching at my sides. "I will be direct," James said, settling himself on my couch uninvited. "As Sophia's legal husband, I am entitled to a significant portion of her estate. California is a community property state. Half of what she earned during our marriage legally belongs to me. You abandoned her when she got sick," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You left her alone to face cancer. You did not call, visit, or even send a card for 10 years. James shrugged. "Irrelevant from a legal standpoint. We never divorced. I am her next of kin." "Sophia left everything to me in her will," I countered. His attorney spoke up. "Wills can be contested, especially when they attempt to disinherit a spouse. We are prepared to file immediately if necessary, but we would prefer to settle this amicably." "What exactly do you want?" I asked. James smiled, a cold, calculated expression. "I think 20 million would be fair. Less than I am entitled to, actually, but I am willing to be reasonable." The sheer gall of his demand made my blood boil. This man who had caused my daughter so much pain now wanted to profit from her death. He had abandoned her at her most vulnerable moment, and now he thought he deserved her hard-earned money. "Get out of my house," I said quietly. James leaned forward. "Be smart about this, Ezra. A legal battle will be expensive and messy. Neither of us wants Sophia's legacy dragged through the courts. 20 million and I disappear forever." "I would not give you $20, I replied. "Sophia built her company through her own brilliance. You contributed nothing but pain to her life." "Fine," he snapped, standing abruptly. "We will see you in court. My attorney will file first thing tomorrow." He strode toward the door, then turned with a smirk. "By the way, how is your health, Ezra? At your age, can you really handle years of litigation stress? Might be easier to just pay me and enjoy whatever time you have left." After they left, I sat in my kitchen, hands trembling with rage and fear. Could James really take what Sophia had explicitly wanted me to have? The thought of him getting a single dollar of my daughter's money made me physically ill. I called my oldest friend, Michael Donovan. We had known each other since high school, and he had retired recently after 30 years as a detective with the Philadelphia Police Department. I explained the situation, my voice breaking several times. "This feels wrong, Mike. There has to be something I can do." Michael was quiet for a moment. "You know, people like James always have skeletons in their closets. They think they are too smart to get caught, but they leave traces. Give me a week. Let me see what I can dig up." Michael arrived at my house the following Sunday with a thick folder under his arm. His expression told me he had found something significant. "James Taylor has been a busy man since he left Sophia," Michael said, spreading documents across my dining table. 6 months after he abandoned her, he married a woman named Rachel Winters in Las Vegas, daughter of a casino owner. The marriage lasted 18 months before she filed for divorce, citing emotional abuse and financial exploitation. I stared at the marriage certificate dated less than a year after James had left my cancer-stricken daughter. But he was still legally married to Sophia. Michael nodded grimly. Exactly. That is bigamy, a felony in most states. But it gets better. After the divorce from Rachel, he burned through a series of wealthy girlfriends. He has been sued twice for fraud by women who claim he convinced them to invest in non-existent business ventures. How did he get away with this? I asked. He uses different variations of his name. James Edward Taylor, J.E. Taylor Edward James Taylor. Just enough difference to avoid immediate red flags, but legally all the same person. Michael kept pulling out documents, credit reports showing massive gambling debts, tax records indicating potential evasion, court records from restraining orders filed by 2 different women. And here is the kicker, Michael said, sliding forward a bank statement. 3 days after Sophia's obituary appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle, James withdrew $50,000 from his account and paid it to a private investigator who specializes in asset searches. He has been planning this money grab since he learned of her death. The evidence painted a clear picture of a predator who moved from wealthy woman to wealthy woman, extracting what he could before moving on. The pattern was consistent and damning. What do I do with this information? I asked. You need a serious attorney, Michael said. Not just an estate lawyer, but someone who handles complex cases involving fraud. I know just the person. The next day, Michael introduced me to Thomas Reynolds, a formidable attorney known for taking down wealthy fraudsters. After reviewing the evidence Michael had gathered, Thomas agreed to represent me. What James is attempting is textbook inheritance fraud, Thomas explained. He abandoned your daughter during her illness, made no attempt at reconciliation during her life, then appears immediately after her death to claim her assets. Courts take a very dim view of such behavior, especially with the evidence of his subsequent marriage while still legally married to Sophia. Thomas recommended a 2-pronged approach, aggressively counter any legal filing James made, while simultaneously building a case for criminal charges related to the bigamy and potential fraud. The best strategy here is not just defense, but offense, Thomas said. James is counting on you being too grief-stricken and intimidated to fight back effectively. He does not expect you to come at him with everything you have. Over the next 3 weeks, Thomas and Michael worked tirelessly to build our case. They tracked down James's second wife, Rachel, who readily agreed to provide a sworn statement about their marriage. They located former business partners who had been burned by James's schemes. They even found the hospice nurses who had cared for Sophia in her final days and could testify to James's complete absence. Meanwhile, true to his word, James filed a petition contesting Sophia's will. His filing painted him as a loving husband who had been temporarily separated due to personal difficulties, but who had always intended to reconcile. It was fiction of the highest order, but crafted to create a legal claim to Sophia's estate. Thomas filed our counter-petition immediately, including evidence of abandonment, James's bigamous second marriage, and his pattern of financial exploitation. He also suggested we request a meeting with James and his attorney, ostensibly to discuss settlement terms. Let him think you are intimidated, Thomas advised. Let him believe you are ready to cave. His arrogance will work against him. I agreed, and Thomas arranged the meeting at his firm's impressive downtown offices. On the appointed day, I arrived early and was escorted to a large conference room. Thomas briefed me on the plan. Let James lead the conversation. Let him think he has the upper hand. When he reveals his true intentions, which he will if given enough rope, we will spring the trap. At precisely 10 a.m., James arrived with his attorney, Diane Winters. He looked confident in an expensive suit, a gold watch glinting on his wrist. He shook my hand with false solemnity. "I am glad you have decided to be reasonable, Ezra," he said. "This is better for everyone." Thomas gestured for everyone to sit. "My client has asked for this meeting to understand exactly what Mr. Taylor is seeking and why he believes he is entitled to it." James leaned forward eagerly. "As I explained previously, as Sophia's legal husband, I am entitled to a substantial portion of her estate under California law. Community property means half of what she earned during our marriage is legally mine. However, I am willing to settle for $20 million, which is less than I could claim." "And what contribution did you make to the growth of SecureShift during your marriage?" Thomas asked mildly. James waved his hand dismissively. "I provided the supportive home environment that allowed Sophia to focus on her work. I managed our social connections, many of which resulted in valuable business relationships for her. I had to bite my tongue to keep from lashing out at this blatant lie." "And during Sophia's illness," Thomas continued, "what support did you provide then?" A flicker of annoyance crossed James's face. "That period was difficult for both of us. We handled it in our own way." "By handled it in your own way, do you mean you abandoned your wife 3 days after her cancer diagnosis and never returned?" Thomas's voice remained calm, but his words landed like blows. James's attorney interjected. "Mr. Taylor's actions during that period, while regrettable, do not negate his legal rights as Sophia's spouse. We are here to discuss settlement, not to rehash painful history." Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. And to be clear, Mr. Taylor, you were still considering yourself married to Sophia during the 10 years you were absent from her life." "Legally, yes," James replied. "We never divorced." Thomas opened a folder. "So you would agree that your marriage to Rachel Winters in Las Vegas on November 14, 2015, 6 months after leaving Sophia, was invalid and potentially criminal?" The color drained from James's face. His attorney looked at him sharply. "What is he talking about, James?" Before James could respond, Thomas continued. "And would you care to explain the $50,000 payment you made to Hamilton Investigations 3 days after Sophia's obituary was published? Was that to research her assets in preparation for this claim?" James's confident demeanor crumbled. "How did you, or perhaps you would like to address the restraining orders filed against you by Elaine Prescott and Gabriela Suarez, both wealthy women who claim you defrauded them of significant sums?" James stood abruptly. "This is irrelevant. We are here to discuss Sophia's estate. Actually," Thomas said, his voice hardening, "we are here to make something very clear. You abandoned Sophia when she needed you most. You committed bigamy by marrying another woman while still legally married to her. You have a documented pattern of targeting and exploiting wealthy women. If you pursue this claim against Sophia's estate, we will not only fight you in probate court, but we will also ensure that prosecutors in California, Nevada, and Pennsylvania are fully aware of your criminal activities." The conference room door opened, and Michael entered, followed by a striking woman with platinum blonde hair. James's face went ashen. "Hello, James," the woman said coolly. "It has been a while." "Rachel," James stammered. "What are you doing here?" Rachel Winters, James's second wife, took a seat at the table. "I am here because I recently discovered our marriage was never legal, since you were still married to someone else. That makes all those investment opportunities you talked me into even more problematic, legally speaking." James turned to his attorney in panic. "This is an ambush. They cannot do this." Diane Winters was already gathering her papers. "We need to step outside and confer, James. Now." As they huddled in the hallway visible through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see their heated discussion. Diane was gesturing emphatically, her expression growing increasingly severe. When they returned, her professional demeanor had cooled considerably. "In light of new information," she said stiffly, "we would like to request a temporary adjournment to reassess our position." Thomas smiled pleasantly. "Of course. But before you go, you should know that we have also spoken with Gregory Patterson from the SEC, who is very interested in those unregistered securities Mr. Taylor was selling to his romantic partners. And Detective Lance Moretti from Las Vegas PD's Fraud Division has expressed interest in the gambling debts Mr. Taylor covered with money from Rachel's accounts." James looked completely deflated, his arrogance replaced by naked fear. "What do you want?" he asked hoarsely. "We want you to withdraw your petition contesting Sophia's will, sign a legally binding agreement renouncing any claim to her estate, and disappear," Thomas stated flatly. "In exchange, we will not actively pursue criminal charges, though we cannot speak for what Rachel or the other women may choose to do." James's attorney placed a restraining hand on his arm. "We will consider your terms and respond through proper channels." As they prepared to leave, I finally spoke up. "James." He turned his face a mixture of anger and fear. "My daughter was one of the most brilliant, kind people this world has ever known. She deserved so much better than what you gave her. You left her to face cancer alone after vowing to stand by her in sickness and in health. Then you had the audacity to come back after her death to try to profit from her hard work. There is no legal consequence severe enough for what you have done, but I promise you this: you will never see a penny of Sophia's money. Not 1 cent. For the first time, I saw real shame in his eyes. Without another word, he followed his attorney out. Rachel stayed behind briefly to provide additional details to Thomas about her relationship with James. Before she left, she touched my arm gently. "Your daughter must have been remarkable. I am sorry for your loss, and sorry that the same man who hurt you and Sophia also hurt me. Some people leave nothing but damage in their wake." Within 48 hours, James's attorney submitted formal notification that he was withdrawing his petition contesting Sophia's will. The accompanying settlement agreement included a complete renunciation of any claim to Sophia's estate and a non-disclosure clause preventing James from discussing Sophia or her business in any capacity. Thomas called with the news. "It is over, Ezra." He caved completely. "Sophia's estate will be distributed exactly as she wished, with everything going to you." For the first time since the funeral, I broke down completely. Not just with relief, but with grief. Fighting James had given me a focus, a purpose amid my loss. Now I had to face the reality of a world without my daughter. The months following the legal victory were difficult. I rattled around in my Pennsylvania home surrounded by memories, but with no clear path forward. The $29 million sat untouched in accounts Thomas had helped me set up. I had no interest in the money. I would have traded every penny to have Sophia back. One morning I received a call from Marcus Chen, Sophia's chief technology officer at SecureShift. "Mr. Morgan, the board would like to meet with you. As Sophia's primary shareholder, you have controlling interest in the company. We need your input on some strategic decisions." I nearly declined. What did I, a retired construction worker, know about running a tech company? But something stopped me. This was part of Sophia's legacy, perhaps the most important part. I owed it to her to at least listen. The board meeting was held at Secure Shift's San Francisco headquarters. As I walked through the sleek offices, I noticed Sophia's influence everywhere in the collaborative workspaces, the wall of thank you letters from clients whose security had been protected, and most of all, in the genuine affection with which the employees spoke of her. Marcus and the board presented their vision for the company's future, including expanding their security solutions into healthcare data protection. Sophia had begun preliminary work in this area before her illness, Marcus explained. She believed securing medical information was the next frontier in privacy protection. For the first time since Sophia's death, I felt a spark of purpose. She would want this work to continue, I said, and she would want it done right with the same integrity she brought to everything. After the meeting, Marcus gave me a tour of the office ending at Sophia's former workspace, which had been preserved as a sort of memorial. Her awards lined the walls and photos of her with her team sat on the desk. Among them was a picture of Sophia and me from her Stanford graduation, both of us beaming with pride. "We miss her every day," Marcus said quietly. "She was not just our leader, but our moral compass. We want to make sure her vision continues." That visit changed something in me. I began to see Sophia's inheritance not as money, but as responsibility, a trust she had placed in me to carry forward what mattered to her. I established the Sophia Morgan Foundation with a $10 million endowment focused on 2 missions funding cancer research and supporting women in technology through scholarships and mentorship programs. I worked with Secure Shift's board to establish a permanent seat dedicated to ethical considerations in technology, ensuring that the company would always prioritize the values Sophia had championed. I funded a new cancer wing at the hospital, where Sophia had received treatment, with special attention to creating comfortable spaces for patients' families. And finally, I began to live as Sophia had made me promise. I visited the Grand Canyon, which Amanda and I had always dreamed of seeing. I took cooking classes and learned to make pastas that would have made my Italian grandmother proud. I joined a grief support group where I met others who understood the particular pain of losing a child, and where eventually I found ways to speak about both Amanda and Sophia with more joy than sorrow. 1 year after winning the legal battle against James, Friss received a call from Thomas. "Thought you would want to know," he said. "James Taylor was arrested in Chicago yesterday. Attempted the same scam on a widow there, but she had read about your case online and recognized his pattern. He is facing multiple fraud charges. Rachel and 2 other women have come forward. He will not be targeting vulnerable women again anytime soon." The news brought no joy, only a sense of closure. Justice had been served, but it could not bring Sophia back. Still, I liked to think she would be satisfied knowing he could not hurt anyone else. Life continues to surprise me. At 70, I am busier than I ever expected to be. I serve on the boards of 2 cancer charities in addition to my work with Sophia's foundation. I mentor young construction workers through a program I established at my old company. Most unexpectedly, I have found companionship with Eleanor, a retired literature professor I met at a foundation event, who lost her husband to the same cancer that took Sophia. Sometimes I sit on my porch in the evening, just as I did the night Amanda died, and the night before Sophia left for Stanford. I think about the incredible women who shaped my life, and I feel their presence still. I know now that the true inheritance Sophia left me was not the money or the company, but the example of how to live with purpose, integrity, and love. There is no blueprint for rebuilding a life after such profound loss. But I have learned that moving forward does not mean leaving behind those we have lost. They come with us, their love and their lessons embedded in everything we do. Have you ever had to fight for what was right, even when it seemed impossible, or found purpose after loss? Share your story in the comments below. And if this account of standing up against injustice resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing these difficult but important life lessons. Thank you for listening to an old man's story. And remember, the most valuable inheritance we leave behind is not measured in dollars, but in the lives we touch and the love we share.